Ever wondered why willpower, motivational videos, and all that positive thinking seem to fail you right when the real pain hits? You can read all the right books, chant affirmations, and think you know the theory, but you still wake up with anxiety, sink into depression, feel crushed by guilt, or explode in anger. You find yourself stuck in the same destructive patterns over and over again. It feels completely irrational. It feels unfair. And the worst part, you start to think, this is just who I am. But the psychologist Carl Jung offered a radically different explanation. He suggested that most of our uncontrollable emotions and self-destructive behaviors are uncharacter flaws or just bad luck. They are the expression of something much deeper inside you, the shadow. Today, we're going to explore what the shadow is, how it forms, and why you can't achieve real emotional stability without confronting it. Now, let's be clear about who this is for. This isn't for someone who just wants to feel a little bit better. This is for those of you who live with persistent anxiety, depression, chronic shame, or a nagging inner emptiness. It's for those who see the same patterns repeating in your life, the same type of relationships, the same kind of failures, just with new faces, but always the same ending. It's for anyone who experiences those sudden spikes of rage, panic, or despair that seem to come from absolutely nowhere. It's for you if you feel like no matter what you do, real emotional control is always just out of your reach. While this is not a replacement for professional therapy, it is a powerful, practical map of what's actually happening inside your own mind. So, what did Jung actually mean by the shadow? He used this term to describe all the parts of yourself that you reject, deny, are ashamed of, or simply refuse to acknowledge. And the shadow isn't just your bad traits. It's everything that does unfit into your ideal image of who you think you should be. It's the ideal you created to feel loved, respected, and accepted. Think back to your childhood. You learned early on that kindness is rewarded, obedience is praised, and being pleasant and convenient wins you approval. At the same time, you probably learned that anger is ugly, jealousy is shameful, fear is weak, deep sadness is too much, and wanting too much for yourself is selfish. So, what did you do? You adapted. You started hiding certain parts of your emotional life, pushing uncomfortable impulses and feelings out of sight. But those disowned pieces of yourself didn't just disappear. They became your shadow. So where does everything you suppress actually go? Your mind isn't a trash bin. You can't just throw away the parts of yourself you don't like. Every time you swallowed your anger, pushed down your envy, forced yourself not to cry, or pretended something didn't matter when it did, those emotions didn't just evaporate. They were pushed down into your unconscious, where they continued to operate, just no longer under your direct control. Over time, this has consequences. Anxiety often becomes the constant background noise of all the emotions you never allowed yourself to fully feel or process. Depression becomes the heavy weight of all that accumulated, unexpressed pain locked deep inside. Those sudden rage outbursts, They become the voice of the parts of you that were silenced for far too long. And self-sabotage. That becomes the shadow's way of fighting against goals that contradict your deeper, unconscious beliefs about yourself. From the outside, it looks like I'm my own worst enemy. But from a Jung perspective, it's your unintegrated shadow acting out without your awareness. But here's a crucial point. The shadow is not pure evil. It's not some demon inside you. It's a container of unused power. Everything you are not allowed to be. Yes, it holds aggression, jealousy, greed, and a hunger for control. But it also holds your capacity to protect yourself and set strong boundaries. It holds your ability to feel things deeply instead of living a numb, disconnected life. It holds the creativity that didn't fit into the safe version of you. It holds your fundamental right to want things, to choose for yourself, and to say no. As long as all of this energy remains unconscious, the shadow acts on its own. It shows up in those sudden overreactions, through emotional chaos, and through choices you make that you later look back on and don't even recognize as your own. Integrating the shadow isn't about trying to become some morally perfect person. It's about becoming whole. This brings us to why you can't be emotionally stable while ignoring your shadow. So many people sincerely believe, I control my emotions pretty well. That is, until one critical comment ruins their entire day, or one rejection feels like absolute proof that they are worthless, or one unexpected situation triggers overwhelming panic, rage, or despair. Jung summarized it perfectly when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. As long as you're busy explaining away your negative emotions, suppressing uncomfortable feelings, or blaming your circumstances and other people, your shadow is the one in the driver's seat. True emotional stability is not about never feeling anger, fear, or sadness. Emotional stability is being able to feel those emotions, understand what they're connected to inside you, and not be completely swept away or controlled by them. And that only becomes possible when you stop asking, how do I get rid of this feeling? And you start asking, what part of me is speaking through this feeling? This question is the doorway into shadow work. That's the social mask you wear, the public version of you that the world sees. We'll explore how relying on it too much can make you emotionally fragile, especially when it becomes your only identity. Thanks for watching. And if this resonated with you, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next part of this journey. Have you ever felt like you're living a double life? On the outside, you're the calm, competent, and positive one. But on the inside, you're secretly anxious, exhausted, and maybe even a little resentful. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. This is the paradox of what Carl Jung called the persona and the shadow. The more perfect we try to appear on the surface, the more chaotic our inner world can become. Jung described the persona as our social mask. It's the version of ourselves we create to be accepted and liked by the world. We all have one, and we all need one. Think back to your childhood. You quickly learned which behaviors earned you praise and which ones got you punished or rejected. So, you started to emphasize the good parts and hide the bad ones. Over time, you built a public self, the reliable employee, the supportive friend, the easygoing partner, the one who's always okay. The problem isn't having a mask. The problem starts when you mistake the mask for your entire identity. When you start believing, I am the calm one, or I never get angry, or I'm always positive. Everything that doesn't fit that perfect picture, your anger, your sadness, your jealousy, your needs gets pushed down into the darkness. This hidden part of you is what Jung called the shadow. The more polished and perfect your mask is, the more pressure builds up behind it. This is why people who seem to have it all together often suffer the most internally. They might struggle with anxiety that comes out of nowhere, or a deep sadness that doesn't make sense given their life on paper. They might have sudden outbursts of anger in private, or just feel like a fraud, completely disconnected from themselves. Why does this happen? Because they're putting on a show of being endlessly patient and composed, while secretly carrying all the messy human emotions that don't fit the script. Maintaining this perfect persona is exhausting, but constantly pushing down the shadow is even more tiring. Eventually, your psyche rebels. This can show up as physical symptoms like chronic tension, headaches, or fatigue. It can manifest as emotional breakdowns or impulsive behaviors that seem totally out of character. As Jung warned, the persona is a compromise we make with society, but it can also become a form of self-deception. The more you identify with your mask, the more you lose touch with your real self, and the more power your shadow gains over you. So, where does this shadow show up in your daily life? You don't need to go on a deep spiritual quest to find it. It's right there in your everyday reactions. Pay close attention to your overreactions. Have you ever had a small comment trigger a huge wave of anger, or made a minor mistake that made you feel like a total failure? These disproportionate responses are often the shadow breaking through. It's a sign that something much deeper has been touched. Often, what we can't stand in others is a reflection of what we can't accept in ourselves. Also, look at your harsh judgments of other people. Do you find yourself feeling contempt for people you see as weak, dramatic, or needy? This might be because you're terrified of showing your own vulnerability. Do you harshly criticize people you see as arrogant or attention-seeking? Perhaps you're secretly frustrated that you haven't pursued your own ambitions. We often condemn in others the very traits we've disowned in ourselves. Think about persistent patterns in your life. Chronic envy of other people's success. A nagging sense of guilt over tiny mistakes. Procrastinating on the very things that matter most to you. These are not random quirks. They are often signals from your shadow, pointing to unresolved conflicts and unmet needs that are begging for your attention. Even your body and your dreams can be messengers. Do you have recurring dreams of being chased, losing control, or facing some dark, unknown figure? These are classic manifestations of the shadow trying to get your attention. Similarly, chronic muscle tension, unexplained aches, and constant fatigue can be the physical price of the energy it takes to keep all that uncomfortable stuff repressed and out of sight. The real question to ask isn't, how do I get rid of these feelings, but rather, what are these reactions trying to tell me about the parts of myself I've refused to see? Recognizing your shadow begins with a dose of radical honesty. It's not comfortable, but it's necessary. Ask yourself, what kinds of people truly irritate or disgust me, and what quality in them is the trigger? What emotions feel forbidden for me to express? When do I feel ashamed of my own reactions after the fact? What parts of myself do I hide from the world to maintain my image? This process is designed to be uncomfortable because it threatens the persona, that safe, carefully constructed version of you. Your first impulse will likely be denial. That's not me. Justification, I had a good reason. Or minimization, it's not a big deal. Real inner work begins the moment you can pause and say, okay, yes, this also lives in me. I don't like it, but I won't pretend it isn't there anymore. Awareness is the first step, but it's only the beginning. The journey of confronting the shadow usually moves through several stages. First comes denial, where you refuse to see it. Then comes rationalization, where you find excuses for it. After that, you'll likely hit a wall of resistance. You see the truth, but it brings up so much shame and guilt that you just want to turn away. But if you can push through that, you arrive at acceptance. This is when you can say, these are parts of me. I don't have to act on them, but I will no longer deny their existence. From there, you can move toward integration, gradually owning these hidden aspects, understanding them, and finding a healthy place for them in your life. When you do this, they lose their destructive, autonomous power over you. Jung was very clear on this. There is no real personal growth without this confrontation. You either face your shadow consciously, or you will forever be controlled by it unconsciously. This work isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. It's about trading a fragile, flawless mask for true, resilient strength, and how it transforms you into someone who is genuinely resilient in the real world, not just in theory. Thanks for watching, and if this resonated with you, be sure to subscribe for more. Shadow work isn't just a cool psychological concept you read about. It's a real, demanding, and often uncomfortable process that changes everything. How you feel, how you react, how you make decisions, and how you relate to yourself and others. As you start this journey, you'll discover that deeper parts of your psyche, what Carl Jung called archetypes, become active. These are like inherited psychological patterns that shape our experiences. When you confront your shadow, 4 archetypes are especially important: the anima and animus, the self, and the trickster. They can either guide you or trap you, depending on how aware you become. Let's start with the anima and animus. These act as inner bridges to your unconscious mind. For a man, doing serious inner work often awakens his anima, the feminine aspect of his psyche. This might show up as mysterious women in his dreams, seductive, dangerous, wise, or nurturing. It can also manifest as intense emotional projections onto real women, swinging between idealization and resentment. Or it could be a sudden flood of feelings he was taught to suppress, like vulnerability, tenderness, or deep sadness. these aren't just random fantasies. They are symbolic messages about emotional needs he's denied, sensitivity he's suppressed, and intuitive knowledge he's ignored. For a woman, the equivalent archetype is the animus, the inner masculine. This can appear as powerful male figures in dreams who might be critical, controlling, or inspiring. It can also be that nagging inner voice that says you must, you should, or you're not good enough. In daily life, it might show up as a strong attraction or resistance to certain types of men. The animus often symbolizes her beliefs about power and competence, her internalized critic, and her own drive and mental clarity that need to be brought into balance. In both cases, these archetypes reveal what the shadow has been holding and invite you to integrate it. As your shadow work gets deeper, you might start questioning your old goals. You might feel like your old identity just doesn't fit anymore, and you could even face a crisis of meaning and direction. This isn't a sign that you're lost. It's often a sign that you've made contact with the archetype of the self. The self is the organizing center of your psyche, and its goal is wholeness, not just superficial comfort. The self works by bringing hidden material into the light and pushing you to rebalance one-sided attitudes. It often uses crisis as a catalyst for transformation. So, if it feels like your life is falling apart, what's really collapsing is the false structure you built on denial and your public persona. If you stay with the process, the result is a much more stable sense of who you are. You'll find a deeper alignment between your inner world and your outer life, and you'll build emotional resilience that's rooted in authenticity, not performance. Now, let's talk about the sneakiest archetype on this journey, the trickster. The trickster shows up right when you start thinking, I've worked through all my stuff, or I'm so much more conscious than other people, or I've transcended my shadow. Trickster energy inflates your ego, turning your spiritual or psychological work into a new, superior identity. It creates the illusion of progress while your core negative patterns remain completely untouched. For example, someone might have a few insights and decide they're above normal human reactions, yet their relationships are still a chaotic mess. Or someone might use their awareness as a weapon to judge and distance themselves from others. The trickster's role is harsh, but it's incredibly useful because it exposes your self-deception. Real integration of the shadow doesn't lead to grandiosity. It leads to more humility, more compassion, more realism, and a quiet, grounded strength. So, why go through all of this? Because the payoff isn't some abstract idea. It's profoundly practical. When you genuinely integrate parts of your shadow, your life changes in very real ways. Your emotions become usable information instead of destructive forces. Anger, for example, becomes a signal that your boundaries have been violated, not an uncontrollable explosion. Fear becomes information about where you feel unsafe or unprepared, not a total shutdown. And sadness becomes a way to process loss, not a permanent black hole you can't climb out of. You also become much less reactive. Other people's opinions stop having absolute power over you. Criticism hurts less because it no longer hits a part of you that you've completely denied. You can stay present in difficult conversations instead of collapsing into a puddle or going on the attack. You become more authentic. You'll stop spending all your energy maintaining a perfect image. You can say yes and no honestly. Your relationships become deeper because you're showing up as a real, whole person, not just playing a role. Most importantly, you develop a stable inner center. Not because life gets easy, but because you are no longer at war with yourself. As Jung pointed out, people who accept their darker side become stronger, not weaker, because they stop living in fragments and start living as a whole. Integration isn't a one-time event, it's a daily practice. So, here are some concrete ways to support it in your everyday life. First, practice conscious inner dialogue. In moments of anger, jealousy, or shame, just pause and ask yourself, what exactly am I reacting to right now? What belief about myself is being triggered? What part of me feels threatened? The goal isn't to suppress the emotion, but to listen to it. Second, try reflective journaling. Spend a few minutes each day writing about situations that triggered strong reactions. Write down what you felt and the stories that popped into your head. Writing helps create distance and allows unconscious material to surface safely. Third, track your dreams. Keep a simple dream journal by your bed. Note any recurring themes, intense emotions, or symbolic figures. Treat them as messages from parts of yourself that don't have another way to speak to you. Fourth, practice mindfulness and what I call pause training. You don't need to be a perfect meditator. You just need the habit of noticing when you're triggered, taking a single breath before you react, and choosing not to act on that first impulse. That tiny pause is where shadow work becomes real. Fifth, use your relationships as a laboratory for self-discovery. Notice where you overreact, where you idealize or demonize others. Ask yourself what you demand from others that you don't give to yourself. Your interactions are a constant source of feedback. Sixth, practice setting boundaries with an honest no. Difficulty with boundaries often hides shadow material, like a deep fear of rejection or suppressed anger. Learning to say no without aggression is a powerful form of integration. And finally, do regular persona check-ins. Ask yourself, what image am I trying to maintain right now? What do I have to suppress to keep this image intact? The goal isn't to destroy your public persona, but to stop worshipping it as your only self. These practices don't make the shadow disappear. They change your relationship with it, shifting from denial and fear to dialogue and responsibility. Shadow work is irreversible. Once you see the parts of yourself you've hidden, the emotions you've suppressed, and the impulses you've denied, you can't truly go back to believing the old myth that you are only your light side. That can be unsettling, but it opens you up to a deeper, more honest truth. I am not perfect, but come both light and darkness. And because I accept that, I am more free than I was before. Ignoring your shadow fuels chronic anxiety and depression. It keeps you trapped in repetitive, painful patterns and leaves you vulnerable to your own unconscious drives. Facing the shadow, on the other hand, builds true emotional resilience. It reduces your vulnerability to manipulation, both from others and from yourself. It gives you a sense of inner solidity that does not depend on constant validation from the outside world. This process never really ends. As you grow, new layers of your psyche will appear, but you'll grow with them, becoming more honest, more grounded, and more capable of holding life's complexity. This path isn't for those who want comfort at any cost. It is for those who want truth over illusion, wholeness over performance, and real freedom over a protective fantasy. Your shadow will not disappear, but you can become larger than it not by destroying it, but by owning it. If you're still here, still watching my videos, I just want to say something simple. Thank you. In this world of endless noise and constant distractions, the fact that you choose to spend your time here with me means more than you can possibly imagine. It means you're one of those rare people who wants to go deeper, who wants to question things, and who looks for answers inside yourself, not just on the surface. I am honestly so happy that there are people like you who share these interests, these questions, and this search for meaning. So, if you feel like this space resonates with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and maybe share this video with someone you know who might need it. Your support helps this content reach more people who are also quietly searching. Thank you for being here, really.